Hey everyone, it's Terrence Branley, and welcome back to the Grow IT podcast. And today I'm grateful to have Philip Deneef, who is your title the president at Computer Options, Phil?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
President and head of growth.
great. So you, as obviously Grow IT, you know we love talking about growth, and we love talking about IT, all the topics that are pertinent in the industry today. So I'm grateful to have Philip on today, and welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your overall background and what led up to taking the president position at Computer Options.
Yeah, so I've been in sales and sales management now for going on 25 years. Have worked in a couple of different industries. Got my start in telecom in the mobility sector. Um, did some things in advertising and marketing. Came back to the ISP space. Dabbled in SaaS for a little bit, and the MSP that I worked for was recently acquired by a private equity firm, and through someone that I used to work with, was working for one of the sister companies, and kind of talked to me about the ecosystem and the opportunity. Started having some conversations, and really thought it would be a good fit for where I'm at in my career, to help grow another organization. And when I look at the MSP space, bringing, I think, some more mid-market and enterprise growth strategies and sales tactics to them to really help them scale in a predictable way.
So let's talk a little bit about that. I want to get to the specifics of your offering, but let's just talk about that because there are a lot of different tactics. And you mentioned even your background in SaaS, right? And I don't know use necessarily tactics, but the different strategic you know methods for going to market from a sales and marketing standpoint. I mean, what are you going to try and leverage over from your experience with some of those other firms and industries? And SaaS, obviously SaaS is a little bit different than kind of the service offering, but what do you see as pertinent to bring over to Computer Options?
Yeah, and I think so. The software company I was at was actually wholly focused on serving the telecom industry. So having that niche and not trying to be everything to everyone was something that attracted me to that opportunity. And I think it's something in the MSP space that some people are doing well, but as a whole, probably not doing as well as we could be, because we look at it as a service business in a local market, and we want to gain as much local market share, but not really having that focus on I can solve a determined amount of problems for a determined amount of people, and really, going beyond just what an ideal customer profile is, but into the value proposition and the GTM motion of we are going to carve out one, two, or three markets that we can understand really well, provide excellent service to, and help them evolve through where they are today, and as their digital transformation continues to change, stay ahead of those trends. Because in IT, there's so many different disciplines, right? That a company has to have, and I think when you're trying to spread yourself too thin and having too many customers in too many different industries, staying up on regulations, requirements, compliance things, that just gets really, really challenging, and you can only hire so many people. So I think, bringing a niche focus in. Another thing on the go-to-market and sort of demand generation thought process that other industries have been working for a very long time is really diversifying where leads are coming from and how we are engaging with those leads. It's pretty common in small business in general for a founder-led sales type of organization to think, if I can get them on the phone and if they're a referral, I can close them. And that is great when you're going from 1 to 10 million, right? And even if you can make it to 10 million, once you crack the 8-figure mark and you're trying to get to 15, 20, 25 million, there's just not enough time in the day. There's not enough referral sources out there. And so how do we get the message out to the people we want to talk to? And how do we change the way that we have conversations with those people about the problems that we solve, as opposed to, here's everything that we do, tell us what makes sense for you, and then we'll give you a price, and then we're going to incrementally continue to charge you more as we find out more about your business. So I think just that traditional, deep discovery, qualification, and disqualification process, bringing people in through different channels. Referral sources are great. Word of mouth is still, the number one way to get business and get it quickly, but there's definitely obviously other mediums, social media, online advertising, cold calls, emails, all these things. So how do you combine all of those efforts that are working very well for other industries that are still selling into this exact customer base, and how do we put that into managed service, cybersecurity, etc.?
There's a lot there. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think that we talk a lot to, let's call it, founders, owners, execs. In It's usually founders and owners. Those firms that are growing. A lot of them can't get to 10 million. With that founder owner led aspect, they usually top out in, let's call it, the 3 to 6 million range, right? But what they tell us is, hey, we just want to have more conversations with our ideal prospects, right? I mean, the more conversations that we have, the more we can uncover the challenges that our prospects are facing and see if we can provide them a solution. And I think that kind of alludes to what you're talking about, which is like, it's not always a matter of like, hey, give me a lead and let me close said lead. It's like, there's so much that's involved in the business relationship side of things, right? Like, we've met a couple of times, Philip, right? And you develop that relationship, and then it's like, okay, well, let's see, is there a mutual need? Is there some way we can, be of help? But to have those business conversations are just so critical. And I think a lot of times get overlooked.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was recently posting something on LinkedIn, just kind of breaking down my thoughts on the sales process. And I've had really great opportunities working in small and medium-sized businesses to get access to, founders and CEOs who are great visionaries and have allowed me a lot of autonomy to build things and fail and then figure out what works. And so just the simple things, like a prospect is not a lead, right? Like that initial conversation, we're just having a conversation. We're trying to get to understand each other's businesses. That is a different motion to me than how I'm going to treat a lead. And I'm trying to either move people through next stages or get them out, right? And just say, right now is not a great time to have this conversation. I'm happy to send you information. I'm happy to engage into you, but like, I'm not putting you through this motion of we are agreeing that we're trying to solve a problem together, right? And so a prospect is not a lead. A lead is not an opportunity. And just because you have an opportunity doesn't mean you have a contract, right? And so as you work through those progressions through your conversations, the goal is to have alignment on what they are trying to accomplish, how your service can solve that problem, and when they want that problem actually solved. And when can they get it solved? They may say, I need it yesterday, but I've got to go through budget approval, and this is not until a next year thing. And that is totally fine. I still want to talk to you. I still want to engage with you. I still want to do everything we can to prepare for that. So now we're talking about a PO or a money conversation, and we're not waiting until next year to restart the whole thing, right? So that is what I've learned through different businesses has worked well to provide that predictable scale. And I think most importantly, to be able to feed a team, right? Not just a founder-led or not just an executive-led sales presence who can go out there and maybe promise a little bit more than the standard product offering to go and get clients, but like, how can you support a team of 3, 5, 10 people? And to do that at scale, it really requires thoughtfulness and a process of moving people through these progressions.
You mentioned some great stuff there, right? It does. You have to have something that is a repeatable process, but at the same time that respects the prospect as to where they're at in their buying journey, and not having your salesperson, and this is my opinion, I'm going to get your take on this, not have a salesperson forcing the square peg in the round hole, which is like, hey, I'm trying to meet my number, whether it's a monthly, quarterly number, right? But understanding you're there to serve that prospect and where they're at in their buying process and how you can be of help to them, now, today, and or, in the future, but respecting that buying process and not trying to implement your own business process, your business sales process into a forced methodology of trying to say, hey, I see you as a potential deal that could close, right? Like close sooner. Like we hear people, prospects will tell us, hey, how do we get, our prospects to have a higher sense of urgency? My answer is you don't, right? That they have their own priorities, their own business initiatives. All you can do is be there to have the conversations and be there to support and nurture that relationship as it goes. But their initiatives and their priorities are exactly that. And if you're looking for artificial ways to speed up that process because you want to get a deal done, you're completely looking at it wrong.
I 100% agree. I will say that alignment becomes extremely important. And so if there is some motivating factor, some trigger event, or some deadline that they need to hit, then getting alignment on that and sort of backing into when they need to sign, right? PO issuance, onboarding, we get work started, and having that conversation and setting that expectation, because as a user of IT and IT services in the past, I want everything and I want it now, and that's not necessarily fair. Now I'm sitting on the other side.
Yeah, there's no light switch to the services.
Right, and so they're like, oh, we're gonna have a new facility opening, all these things, and or whatever that is what you can use as your leverage, so to speak. But I don't like to think about it that way. I just like to think about it as alignment. Like, we're going down this path together to achieve a goal. Now, in order to achieve that goal on the timeline that you told me was important to you, here is when we need to do those things. Now, can someone do you a favor and say, like, you were planning on, I know we talked about April 15th, but it would really help me to hit my end of quarter numbers. Sometimes that's going to work out, but for the most part, I mean, it's really about getting that alignment. And I think it takes a long time for people to make business decisions these days, especially on things that they don't fully understand. Like, if they had a full IT department, they wouldn't need us. And so they're trying to grasp it. They've got a budget for it. Buying committees are getting larger and definitely more indecisive. And so I really think, like, working through your champions, your executive sponsors, and understanding their goals, you'll just get clarity. And I think that's more important than accelerating. Like, hey, we're going to do this in the third quarter. Okay. Now it's my job to make sure we're continuing on track with that. And it's my job to make sure that we're uncovering obstacles, preventing blockers, all of those things, and understand, all right, you say you want to do this in the third quarter. What could stop us from doing that? Right? Are you planning on raising funds? Or are you going to go get a loan? Are you planning on some sort of expansion thing kicking in, and that's why you need this to happen? Or is it you run on some weird fiscal, non-calendar financial thing? That's when the budget resets, and you'll be clear to issue the PO at that point. And so I just think having clarity helps me understand the viability of the deal, where I can add value, and what I need to continue to do. Because if you're saying we're clear, but you can't sign for this amount of time, then let's get all the legal stuff out of the way, right? Like, let's do as much prep work as we can, cut down on onboarding with an agreement that we're going to move forward at this time.
Yeah.
And that also will just, it's a little bit of a pressure test. If they're like, no, we don't want to do anything, that's also okay. But now I know where I sit.
And sometimes salespeople, and this is probably one of the things that I've learned in my career too, are afraid to ask those questions. And it's, it's perfect, not only perfectly acceptable, it's a good use of both your time and the prospect's time to ask those questions. I mean, that's pertinent to the process and so important. Let me ask you this. What do you had mentioned earlier, you talked about focusing on a few, I think three kind of niche areas. And I think that's so important. I mean, again, from even from our own firm's standpoint, focusing on IT consulting firms and IT firms in terms of marketing and business strategy. But when you talk about the three niche areas that you guys are going to focus on, tell us a little bit about kind of what you consider to be your core offering, and maybe what you consider to be the core offering for each of those three areas that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So we're looking at manufacturing, healthcare, and logistics. It's something, the business has been around for 26 years. It's been really great in focusing on a specific geographic area in Southern California. We're looking to expand that to come a little bit more into the LA Metro, Orange County markets. But we've gained a lot of experience in those three particular areas and know how to serve them and serve them well as they've gone through all of the technology changes over the last 2.5 decades. Really, it's continuing to evolve, but we are definitely in the VCIO suite for them, like providing that high level strategic guidance on what should be done from a technical level. We're ingrained in the HR process and doing it a little bit differently. We're not just waiting. Like, we really want to know what their hiring trends are for the year so that we can help prepare them for the type of roles that they're hiring for, because we're doing, role-based setup so that we can automate a lot of the work and get new equipment out the door as quickly as possible, and so that new onboarding experience is not, oh, I've got a laptop but I don't have my email, or I don't have all my software configured, or my drive access, and like really day one when someone sits down technologically, they're ready to go and they have everything that they absolutely need. Level 1 through level 3 support, we've got a lot of discipline. So whether we're helping people with servers or hybrid cloud infrastructure, if we're moving people to the cloud, it's really like having an IT department in your building, because we do a lot of consistent on-site visits, etc. But you get that fractional and depth to the team. You're going to need to hire 10 people to probably cover all of the different areas in which we're hiring. So we're managing software, not just licenses, but the total software suite for people, taking care of their telephony, their internet connections. Cybersecurity is also huge, and not just, hey, we've deployed this agent and it works really well, but more and more business obviously have cybersecurity liability insurance. And so are we putting in the things that actually help them save money on their cybersecurity liability insurance? You can do a lot of things, but there's actually, because the industry is so new, they don't have all of the data. There's only a few things right now that move the needle. So we make sure those types of things are implemented. And then obviously in manufacturing and healthcare, we're doing a lot of compliance work as well. So we're helping with ISO 27001, SOC 2, Type 1 and Type 2, and HIPAA compliance. And because we're in charge of the infrastructure and we've got visuals in there, we can really map all the sys controls and say, like, all right, as you go on this journey, especially like in manufacturing, who haven't done it before, and now maybe they're getting some vendor pressure, or they are going through a merger or raising funding, we can map all of that and do it in a pretty quick and automated fashion.
What are some of the the challenges that your prospects or your clients are facing? And I'd assume the list of initiatives that gets handed down to IT continues to grow, but their budgets, and just the available resources that they have internally to throw at these initiatives keep shrinking, right? So I assume that's probably a big challenge. What are some of the other challenges, or really kind of what are their outcomes? What are they trying to look to accomplish when having conversations with you guys?
Yeah, I think most businesses want IT to just work, and they don't necessarily understand how deeply it is ingrained, right? And so I think people come to us with that initial overarching, like, we just want people's computers to work, we just want the Wi-Fi to work, and we want the phones to work. And like, if I never have to talk to you, that is the perfect version of a relationship. And I say, great, right? Like, if we don't have to talk to each other, we do a quarterly check-in, maybe I take you to dinner, stuff like that. Like, I'm more than happy with that relationship. But the truth of the matter is like, there are a lot of things that go into building this architecture. And so in order to have that peace of mind, and I think that's really what people are looking for, I just want to know that I have the right things in place, my business is not exposed to threats, and that I can hire people and move people out of the organization quickly and efficiently. Like, those are the things that, like, we're really diving deep to and getting into technical solutioning. But I tend not to go that deep, right? We're generally not engaging with a super technical resource. Like, they don't actually care what color is it, Cat 5 or Cat 6, and this one's better because, like, they don't care about that, right? So generally, the task gets passed down to someone else in the organization to go do vendor selection and requirements. But we have that opportunity to build up with the champion and then ultimately talk to the decision makers. I want to focus on running my business, right? I care about a couple of things, generally 4 things: culture, growth, mitigating risk, and reducing costs. So how do we provide those things to you? And that is really where I like to focus the conversation, and then allow to build that trust, and then allow the technical team to really implement what they know are best practices.
I do as well. We do the same on the the marketing and sales strategy standpoint, and I think it's so important. I always try and encourage people to bring the conversation back up to the 30,000 foot view because essentially, and I think that's what business leaders and executives appreciate, right? Which is like they have goals and initiatives. They don't care what color that Cat 5 cable is. They may be trying to migrate their data, or to implement a service provider like yourself to help them free up their resources as they can hit, and focus on their core offerings. And so I think that's so important in all of our roles in terms of talking with our prospects is really to understand the strategic side of things, not to get, down into the weeds. What are some of the, give us some examples of some client like success stories. I know you mentioned kind of private equity firms that have probably been making acquisitions. Maybe give us some, examples of where you guys have come in and really shined to where, obviously the client appreciates it and you guys understand, the tremendous value proposition that you guys offer.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got a couple of clients going through compliance, ISO 27001, SOC 2, and they had been looking outside in the beginning because it wasn't something they understood that we offered, and really being able to break down a roadmap for them and saying like, here's how we can help you achieve this goal, and here's the actual time frame, here's all the cost associated with it, and here's the actual benefit. There's some goals that you were thinking about that you wanted to do and you weren't sure how you were going to fit them in or how disruptive to the business are. Now that we're taking in on this, like we realized that we're checking a lot of boxes, and something that seemed like it was an insurmountable task and it was going to take years and millions of dollars and wasn't sure if it was worth doing. We're like, well, SOC 2, you've got to wait 6 months, right? But like we can get you to the point to where we feel you're compliant and moving through the auditing process, in less than a year. A couple other things, people are coming to us and helping save people money. Like I really enjoy that. So we've got people coming to us that had bought telecom for multiple different sites, multiple different providers, all these kind of things. And we're like, we can bring you a centralized provider, right? And we're saving people, actual real money. Like we're not talking, oh, it's like $50 here or there. It's, hey, we can save you $1,000 a month on your telecom bill. Like that's $12,000 annually back into the business to go put you somewhere else and not having to reduce feature sets. I think other things, we have some nonprofits as well. And so they're actually have a big dependency on technical stuff to do their fundraising and to keep track of stuff. And a lot of ultra high net worth individuals like to donate to nonprofit organizations, but they don't want their data being exposed. And that has been a more and more increasing concern over the years, and helping people ensure that their data is secure so they can go have that trust first conversation with their donors and in their fundraising efforts, I think is providing tremendous value to that community.
What are some of the trends that you're seeing right now, whether it's in conversations with prospects or even your clients? Obviously, anything AI has kind of dominated, a lot of conversations nowadays in terms of what are some of the trends that we're seeing. But I guess I would ask that in two frames to you, which is what trends are you seeing that can affect your business and really the conversations that you're having with prospects and clients, and how does AI come into those conversations?
Yeah. So trends that I'm definitely seeing is there's a lot of buzzwords around cybersecurity. And so people are trying to understand what level of cybersecurity, what their posture should be or needs to be, how much that's going to cost, and how that actually, people are starting to care about the user experience. Like we're kind of in that conundrum where we want to be super safe, but like we don't want to make it super cumbersome for people to do their jobs. And so I think we're having a lot of conversations about the impacts and the posture of going from a reactive to a proactive to a zero trust thought process when it comes to cybersecurity. Obviously, remote work is still very large, even more so in the Southern California market. So how are we ensuring that people are transacting in a safe way from their home office when they generally have, probably don't have a firewall and just, a commercial grade Wi-Fi router at their house? And lastly, I would say when it comes to the AI stuff, there's still a lot of, confusion about how generative AI is going to really help. There's a lot of AI note takers that people bring into meetings and things of that nature, and people are using it to maybe create some content. There's obviously the stuff you can do with images, but like a full business strategy around AI is, I think, something we're starting to see people have questions about, not necessarily adopt. I think Copilot is, as it continues to iterate, the Microsoft product, as it continues to iterate, will probably be the easiest thing to roll out to a business. But I think it's so wide and it still needs a couple of iterations that you really got to build a product offering and a use case around it, because it's sort of like when ChatGPT first rolled out, people didn't know how to use it. And so really looking at the roles within an organization, like how can accounting use Copilot in Excel to prepare reports faster, right? And in the visual ways that the executive team wants to see board reports prepared, right? How's your sales team going to use Copilot to help prepare presentations, keep their CRM updated? And so I don't know if I'll be alive when robots take over the world, but I definitely think like having an AI augmented staff is coming, and I think people are just really want to figure out how to use it and how to keep their data safe as well. Because like, please don't go dump your code into ChatGPT and ask it how to rewrite it, right? How do we keep people's data in a protected and safe architecture while allowing them to take the benefits of generative AI?
I probably date myself, and I know I will, back when I came into the business world, it was pre-internet. The internet came about a few years after that, and there was the same type of concern and hesitation, right? It was like, hey, we don't want, to connect to this worldwide web of information, allow people in and allow our information to get out. And that's where, the company started creating intranets, right? Kind of this internal version to be able to build a fence around and security, which will allow you to kind of experience and drive some internal initiatives utilizing the methodology first, and then saying, okay, now we're comfortable with it. We can go out into the big world. And I almost think this is something similar, and that companies shouldn't be afraid to experiment with, AI. Copilot's a good one. And I think you're right. It will probably be adopted sooner just because it is a Microsoft, and Microsoft is obviously implementing a lot of enterprise businesses. But to kind of experiment with it, drive initiatives, do it in a channel format, whatever you can to try and get an understanding of it within your own organization internally, and that will help you in terms of what you can leverage it outside of your fences. But whatever you do, don't just turn a blind eye to it and say we're not going to do anything with it, because it's going to. I don't. To your point, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be alive when we have, AI robots around. I'm not sure I want to be alive when that happens. But I do think that if you're not experimenting with it, and if you're not trying to see how you can leverage it in your business operations and processes, that you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, and I just think we as the managed service providers in the IT community need to do a better job at productization and training and building use cases, because right now it's just so wide, and it's like, what can I use it for? And so I think you've really got to look at the companies that you serve, or even look at your own business, and like, what are some of the manual things that you're doing that Copilot or AI can help automate, and really put a practice on that. And I think right now, even in the MSP community, there's still only probably the top, maybe 5-10% that are really integrated AI into their own business. And so if I'm not doing it at my business, how am I going to tell you that you should be doing it like X? Like I kind of need to eat my own dog food. And so that is really where I'm at in the AI, being in that I'm kind of within my own ICP, right? As far as like revenue and employee size, and understanding that these initiatives take time. But I definitely think over the next 5 to 10 years, like, it's one of those things. One of the reasons why I'm super passionate about the SMB space is because like technology does give them the opportunity to level the playing field. Like, you're probably never going to outspend your largest multinational competitor from a marketing and customer acquisition. But what can you do on a local level to enhance the experience and then cut down on manual data entry processes, or coming up with calculations or presentations that help you win business?
Yeah, agree. What are, obviously you've come into computer options. You're the president. You had mentioned you're kind of the head of growth as well, and that's obviously a topic I love talking about. 'Cause that's what we engage in, in terms of with our clients, is helping them grow their IT firms. What are some of the challenges and initiatives that you're trying to enact? And again, I know we touched on this earlier in the conversation, but what are some of the challenges that you foresee in terms of growing the business there over, let's call it, the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, so I think any strategy takes time, and you want to see results progressing over that time. I think when I look at MSPs, and I've had a couple of friends in the industry prior to me joining, it's not generally looked at as like a high growth business model. And so the investment in sales and marketing is generally lower from a percentage of top line revenue than you would see in a typical growing business. But the customer acquisition cost is still sometimes relatively high. Mm-hmm. And so I think just the actual dollars of what it takes to acquire a customer and how many of those customers you can acquire, that's a challenge that I'm working through and getting creative with to bring my cost per lead down. CRM adoption implementation, right? Because if you don't have a well thought out sales process, you probably implemented your CRM incorrectly and are not leveraging it in the best way that gives you actionable data. So assessing, I think, our internal tools, our internal process, and then really understanding a lot of MSPs do certain things certain ways. And I'm not here to knock anyone else's business, but like, I don't necessarily understand how inside of the sales process, we need to go and do multiple on-site technical evaluations, but we're not leveraging a lot of that data in how we're crafting the proposal. So I'm like, let me run through a deal cycle a little bit more and get this closer to the finish line, and then we'll come back before we do final numbers. But I think there's just a lot of like, well, we want to make sure we understand the total environment. I'm like, I get that. That's super important. I want to understand if this is a real customer. Right. So
I think that goes back to what we were even talking about earlier in terms of getting back, like getting too far in the weeds and saying, hey, let's go back up from a strategic standpoint and make sure that we've got the kind of the boat going in the right direction before we, get down in the weeds. Is that similar? Are we on the right track on that? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then I would say lastly, like, just overall the amount of tools that MSPs have to have in order to like provide all of this business, and getting trained up and understanding how I can leverage those tools to help bring information to a conversation. That's definitely going to take some time, but ultimately, they're all challenges that I'm very comfortable taking on. I just think that if you're looking to bring on a large amount of customers, you start to think about the operational capacity of onboarding 15, 20, 25 customers a month. Like, can we do that? And what needs to happen to be able to support that level of growth, whether it's people or automation systems, et cetera.
And I think what's so important in what you've said there is that these things don't happen overnight, right? I mean, you have a strategy, and again, it's hard, right? Because from a sales standpoint, you're trying to hit certain numbers, right? You're trying to hit revenue goals on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis. But at the same time, you've got to make sure that you put the groundwork infrastructure in place, to build that as a sound foundation, rather than just, kind of throwing mud against the wall to hit a number to then realize, oh no, do we have the right capacity from a delivery standpoint internally, or we are just kind of pulling the cart before the horse, so to speak?
Yeah, definitely. So I've done a lot of work up front modeling with what I've taken conservative estimates on, like how I think some of these marketing programs are going to work for us, conversion rates, and how we're going to ramp over time. It's in a spreadsheet. That's not real world, but at least we know that if we're anywhere close to my conservative estimates, like how we need to prepare for that level of growth, and looking at a combination of people and process. I mean, a lot can be solved through process, but at some point you are going to need more people.
Yeah, I agree. And you had just mentioned some of the two of the most important parts of a business are the people and the processes. And you got to have the processes in place in order to, to bring on the right people and then have them enact those processes. And I think that's so, critical as well.
Yeah. So I know in small business, you're generally given a lot more autonomy than in an enterprise organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we say we want to hire people with an entrepreneurial spirit and who will go out there and get things done and go the extra mile and make sure customers are happy. And I think that's all fine and well. But if these people wanted to be entrepreneurs, they would be, right? They don't want to deal with that madness because being an entrepreneur isn't all that fun until you make it super successful, right?
100%.
Like I'm not saying take away people's autonomy, but definitely like investing in training, understanding the process, giving them guidelines and telling them what success looks like and reaffirming that and allowing them to say, hey, I found a better way to do this, right? Like that's, I think, the type of autonomy when I've talked to people over the years, like I want to be able to make an impact and make changes. I don't want to have to figure everything out for myself. And
And
so I think there's that balance.
I agree with you, and that's one of the challenges I think that a lot of owners founders go through from that. When they get to that, whatever that glass ceiling is for them in terms of growth, whether it's 4 million, 5 million, whatever that number is, right? And then I've spoken with a number of them. They've made the mistake, and this is self-admittedly from their standpoint, to say we hired someone, right? I hired someone basically, said go get it, right? Like go do it, and it was like, no, that's what a founder entrepreneur does, but you can't expect someone that you hire to be the same as you. They're not going to be a replacement as you. You've got to be able to document some things and give them a platform to be successful on. And I think that's one of the challenges for owner founders when they go from that next step to try and implement some of the things is to understand that, to your point, right, people that aren't that don't want to be in the corporate infrastructure, but at the same time, they don't want to be, hired, sat at a desk and be like, great, now go build business, go generate revenue for us.
Yeah. So, and I think that's even on the IT side. There's just always tribal knowledge, things that weren't documented well. And so I think as much as I don't want to work for a multinational, multi-billion dollar enterprise, there's obviously things that they've done well. Could they be more effective and they probably waste a lot of money? Absolutely. But there are thought processes that they have put into place as it comes to people and process that make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think borrowing from the best of that and putting it into a small business really allows your top talent to shine and for people to continue to develop and understand as their life changes, there's still a place for them in the organization because they understand how to contribute. And it's not because they worked 70, 80 hours a week on something that moved the needle one time for one customer.
Yeah, totally agree. What do you enjoy most about what you do, whether it's in your, in your role or in IT overall? I mean, what is it that kind of drives you? What is it that makes you, gets your engine going? What makes you happy? What do you enjoy doing the most?
Yeah, so I really like helping people solve problems. That is why I feel like in leadership I do well because even for the people that roll up to me, I'm really just there to help them solve problems. They have a challenge, whether it's external or internal, I'm going to clear that obstacle. When we're talking to customers or prospects, we're really just talking about a problem, and I have developed the skill set to sound like I know a lot of technical stuff, but I can't push buttons to save my life, right? So to take the translation from something that's super technical and put it into a business strategy term, into an ultimate outcome, I believe provides a lot of value when you're in a customer-facing and a sales-facing role. And watching the light bulbs go off for people, watching people's shoulders kind of just relax, like, okay, like we have a plan and I can go run my business. Like I do believe, right, small businesses are the backbone of America. It's a huge part of our economy. It provides upward mobility for millions of people. And just being a part of that ecosystem to me is super fascinating. Watching people who come into small businesses, maybe from like a retail type job, and watching them climb that ladder and reach their financial goals and to be able to take care of their family. And just knowing that I've had like the smallest ounce of helping salespeople develop that way, helping customers get better faster and save money so they can grow their business. Like that's what really continues to drive me because honestly, if it was just for the money or for the sales, like you kind of get dead inside after a little while of doing sales for 20 plus years. You see the best and the worst of people, but knowing that you're truly helping people achieve their goals, and being a force multiplier is, I think, what continues to wake me up every day and make me want to do the job.
Well, I totally agree with you on a lot of things. And as we, wrap up here, and there's, business owners that are, probably, watching this and wondering how you can, be of help to them. What's a good next step typically that you guys, would recommend in terms of for them to reach out? Is there some form of audit? Like what's a good way for them to have a first conversation with you guys?
Yeah, definitely. So people can reach out to me on LinkedIn.com/Philip Deneef. We're at computeroptions.net, and make a phone call, whatever you feel comfortable communicating to us with, and just having an open conversation about whatever it is you're trying to achieve. We talked about the intranet. That's still a thing, right? So maybe it's just that we were working with someone on implementing SharePoint as like an intranet thing. Like maybe you just have a small initiative that you want to talk to, or you've got a big building and you're tired of walking around and the Wi-Fi not connecting to your phone correctly. Like whatever it is, let's just have the initial conversation, and see how we can be of service. We'll do lots of things with no commitment, no cost, bill reviews, assessments, things of that nature. We'll keep your existing provider honest. We'll help you answer security questionnaires. Like there's so many challenges that a business could be facing today, and I don't want you to think like, hey, we're going to try to sell you on this long-term engagement and take over your IT. We just want to have the conversation. We just want to be of service, and hopefully earn your business over time. So definitely encourage you guys to reach out. And even if you're not necessarily thinking of something today, get our contact information, right? Let's have that initial, promise like 7 to 10 minute conversation so you know who we are and what we can do. And as those needs continue to arise, you've got an objective third party who will come in and give you honest feedback.
Well, I can tell you this is a refreshing conversation. We obviously have very similar business models, and more so in terms of our approach, in that value forward. And, we focus so much on what's in it for them, meaning what's in it for our prospects, and we never have to worry about what's in it for us. And I just think that's so important and refreshing in this, day of age in our business world, where a lot of people try and take shortcuts in terms of, trying to get to their lead or their prospect, or, and drive business initiatives from it right away, rather than establishing a relationship. Be like, let's see how we can be of help first, right? Like be of help. We don't need to talk about the business side of things. That will eventually come, right? But the first thing is can we be of help, right? And can we do it in a value forward method that there's, no commitment, but at the same time lets you understand, hey, wow, if they're willing to do this much for us, and we're not even customers, man, this is going to be a great relationship that we may want to expand on. So I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope that we'll get to do it again. And I'll make sure and put the links down there below for folks to get in contact with you. But thank you very much for joining me today.
All right. Thanks, Terrence. This was great. Yep. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Again, we'll look forward to talking to you again, Phil. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.